I am Netmover Sitan. And if you thought that the ring arc was over, well, it's not. There's still more to it, as you will find out in this lore breakdown video. Previously on Leviathan, Virgilius, the Red Gaze, and Garnet, a rookie fixer, were faced with a docent of the ring known as Miss Pablo, who would be absent through the whole month of November as she's nuts. She stabbed the exhibits, who were people taken, and had their mouths sewn shut, and made to do so, likely as some kind of initiation rite. They got into a fight, which led to Virgilius slicing the Phantom of Mardi Gras mask off her face, which released a shadowy, fractured mirror distortion, which swallowed her up. Virgilius and Garnet then left the building, understanding that Lapis, the friend that Garnet was there to meet, was not there. Not in that building, within the back streets of District 22. Garnet gained a valuable lesson. One that he learned there. One that he would not soon forget. Yeah, I know. Voice was slightly cringy there, but I wanted to get the recap. Well, I wanted to give it the right mood, okay? Let's just move on with the conclusion, or continuation of this story arc. Oh, you get the idea. We now move on to what happened next, where Garnet was still in shock at what happened. He was in Virgilius's fixer office with the fixers that are part of that office. It's unclear if he's a part of it yet, but it is clear that he at least wants to tell them what happened in that building with the ring inside it. Virgilius is not there with them. Garnet was talking this over with them over a hot drink and some chocolate chip cookies. The female fixer with the ponytail didn't seem to think that it was worth the risk of going there. Sighing, and then telling him that he trashed the ring's gallery, telling him that it's never good to provoke them. Well, sometimes in the line of work that you work in, that's unavoidable. Garnet knew now that Lapis wasn't in that gallery. Then she told the rookie fixer that Lapis sent him a gift, which surprised him. Clearly he did not have high hopes for her being alive. As for what Lapis sent, Rikoko, the female fixer with the bob cut and the braid, told him that the package wasn't touched. She put it in front of Garnet for him to check out himself. He opened it up, looking slightly hopeful of its contents, only to find a 6mm VHS tape. Yeah, Rikoko. That's apparently what they're using to send regards in your world. Personally, I suspect that it's because more advanced methods of video storage can be hacked remotely. With a tape, however, it's not possible, as it's a technology that predates when the internet was viable as a battleground, along with a place for crime to occur. At least to the extent that we're familiar with now. Not to mention when mobile phones had internet capability. This tape was labelled to G from L. Yeah, it's clear who that's for. Unless, of course, the other two fixers have a name beginning with G, which is highly unlikely, as it's clear that it's meant for Garnets. The light-haired male fixer brought out a player for this tape, and after setting it up on his laptop, and you can tell that the laptop is his due to the sunglasses stickers on it, he played the video. We then see it from Lapis's perspective. Now, how she was able to record this and smuggle it out without being detected, I don't know. But she was somehow able to do it. It's initially unclear what the ring thugs were saying, but there was some interference as she passed through a door. We then cut to a lab that looked like a cross between the inside of a Borg cube and the human batteries, complete with metal nipples and piercings, as seen in the Matrix. In fact, all that's missing is a socket at the back of the neck to plug something painful looking, but somehow isn't. Okay, going off topic. It was clear that some shady and experiments were going on there, even by the standards of the fingers. We then skip to a closer perspective, and I'm starting to think that the exhibits weren't some ring initiation rites, but a test to see who is worthy of being a test subject. Yeah, it's not the most conventional of experiments if you need someone to prove their worthiness of it. I mean, if you wanted a test subject, you just pick any that has a pulse and looks like they have their sanity intact. Well, one of these test subjects is a short, light-haired female in overalls. She was connected to a machine by her head. And someone out of shot was asking if she was Ruby. And Ruby was a test subject labelled A-323, and she had her pupils dilated, and had a smile that said that she was being overwhelmed by something. Yeah, whatever was happening, it wasn't good for her mental health. That's what we can tell from that. And if you think that it can't get any worse, you're clearly new to this, aren't you? Those of you who believe that it can always get worse in a grim, dark setting, good. You're quite perceptive. She then spoke in a different voice, as things started to get a bit unstable, with her saying, "No, Mama! I don't really like milk! I told you before, didn't I?" Then we see test subject Z-23 who said, "And at last the room, white painted, perished into the vast plain. It went crunchy, crunchy." As for test subject B-329, they said, "The butterfly, as it was Ruruminglery, shook hands with the stomach, and I'll come to you tonight." They all said this as the machines went beep, Well, there was a lot of beeping, and they were saying this all within seconds of each other. Apparently, Duramingli, or however you pronounce it, is meant to emulate the gibberish as spoken in the original Korean version, at least according to the translator. Formed out of dream, squirm, wriggle, and hungry. Then we find something that's quite revealing. One of the test subjects said that there were so many of them. And as they were saying this was making the bleeps, or whatever was making it, go wild, as this was too much for them to deal with. The ring scientists asked if the refraction rate was set correctly. It was. It was set to 3.0 as ordered. The maximum number of rifts observed was 26. They wanted to push it up to 40, which they could do, but it would worsen the damage. And the attempt led to another failed test, leading towards the test subject letting out an otherworldly scream. Experiment 32 was ended. I'd hate to see what the other 31 were like. Probably even worse, as they didn't know what was the optimal settings for that. It wasn't the refraction rate that was the problem, at least according to one of the researchers. Then we saw Ruby, or more specifically, what she had turned into. We see a clear vision of this cracked mirror distortion that Ruby was now. It's unclear how she was contained within that mask, but we'd know what happened when it was broken. Then someone asked Azea, one of the researchers, if the subject shattered to pieces. Azea warned this person that it would happen since the start of this. There was only so much that they could do on their own. That if they're going to pull off an abduction, like the of test subjects, they should have committed and brought the other 8 with him. The other 8 of what? Well, it's likely to be manpower related, considering that this person told them to wait, as more manpower would be there soon. Azea thought that it would be a touching reunion, and then asked this person who is clearly in charge of these experiments, or at least the one financing them, how many rifts she wanted them to make, or more specifically, planning to make. 40? 50? As for this person, she was the maestro of the ring that Garnet spoke of, the one with the 3-banded ring on her finger in Book 2. Yeah, she was definitely the one in charge of that operation. And she wasn't thinking of 40 or even 50 rifts. She wanted 10,000 minimum. Then the video ended. Ooh, how will Virgilius and the others react to this? Well, it's unlikely to be good. That much I can predict. but to be more sure of that, we'll need to wait until Book 6. Personally, I hope that Virgilius and the others get a request to go 1980s action hero on their As for the rifts, do you know what they remind me of? What I've read about the identities mechanic of Limbus Company. A game that Virgilius will be involved in, that this is a backstory of. Where what I'll affectionately call the Damned Dozen, well, Dirty Dozen is taken, are able to borrow an identity of an alternative version of themselves. Alternative versions of themselves where they could have been part of the W Corp cleanup crew, or became the templates for one of the teams of R Corp's clone army, or they could have been with the Zwei Association, or even become a thug in a syndicate like the Kurokomo clan, and so on. The way Ruby said that there's so many of her, it's likely not speaking of literal refraction, as in the refraction of light, that she's seeing more than one version of her, and it's overwhelming her. Yeah. Being exposed to up to 40 different versions of yourself all at once, that'd be enough to overwhelm anyone. Clearly, by the time we get to Limbus Company, whoever developed that technology has stabilized it to allow only one identity to be borrowed at a time, and even then, there are side effects, which, according to the official sources, are mild hallucinations and or expression of statements that clearly contradict grounded facts. Well, speaking gibberish certainly matches up to that, although this is likely speaking of alternative events that happened in the reality that identity was borrowed from, that didn't happen in the reality that this person belonged to. As for who invented this technology, it was the self-proclaimed third smartest person in the city. Wonder who the second and third smartest are. Well, let's hope all three aren't Ian, Benjamin, and Carmen, because Ian and Carmen, they're not exactly how they used to be. Let's just say that. And as for Benjamin, he's currently in the outskirts, along with the rest of the library. I suspect that what the ring was experimenting on was some kind of early prototype of this technology that taps into parallel worlds and utilizes different alternatives of others. Yeah, that's as good a theory as any. As for what's next, well, we'll just have to find out, as the fate of Lapis is still unconfirmed. Best not to consider her dead unless she's found dead. Or at least, she's found in pieces, and not necessarily fleshy pieces as, well, considering Ruby turned into a shattered glass mirror distortion, there are less conventional ways of dying than, well, just being a splattered mess on the wall and floor. In fact, death, in some cases, is probably merciful by comparison. starting to think that Virgilius and his fixers are Seven Association affiliated, considering that they're not entirely combat heavy, and they seem to be into investigating certain matters. Well, until next time. Hail the rabbit!